Okay.
Okay. We're going to be going over real estate conversations, the words you need to know, the words you need to win a deal.
So a lot of times in real estate, especially if you're new or you're faced with a new situation, you end up going to a mentor and you say, what do I say to this person? Any new agent sitting at this table that's worked with us has asked us that question. All the time, sometimes we just, what do we say?
So a lot of times you will talk to someone, you're like, hey, let me get in for a listing consultation. Let me get in for a buyer's consultation. And then we get asked, okay, I got the appointment. Now what do I say? What's the right approach? How do we go about this so we win the deal?
And that's what we want to show you guys today. So some of the things we use, and then some of the other pieces in here are from this book, if you want to take notes. This is a great, easy book to read, and he really breaks down the psychology behind some of the things we're going to talk about today.
And anybody who needs writing materials in the middle of the table here, so feel free to help yourself.
Okay, so let's start. Communication versus conversation. And don't read the slide, but who would have used those completely interchangeably because they feel like they mean the same thing, right? Well, they don't. Communication is traditionally a one-way form of communicating. You're trying to maybe educate someone. Right now I'm communicating with you guys. A conversation is more of a two-way street. And if we are keeping the mindset of, a lot of what we're going to talk about is if we were in a buyer consultation or in a listing appointment, we are going to do much better in those appointments by not communicating, but by having conversation.
Typically, communication is certain details or specific detail about something that has happened. So when I'm communicating with you, I'm explaining, hey, this is where we're at, this is what's happened, this is what's transpired, and this is where we're going. Where a conversation is, you're conversing back and forth. Conversation creates an understanding. You want to have a conversation when you're trying to win a deal, when you're trying to sell something, or when you're trying to create a certain understanding.
Conversation builds relationships, and that's like what we do, right? That's why we're in real estate, and that's how we sell a lot of it, is through our relationships. Yep. So we need to be super cognizant of how we are handling our interactions. Are we communicating, or are we conversing?
Communication is key, and it's very important, so we don't want to talk down, we don't want to down...
yeah, we're not knocking communication.
Because you definitely need communication. But so many people get confused the difference between communication versus conversation, and that's what we hope to shed some light on. Let's start with some basics. Objections. What are they? Everybody in this room has had some sort of objection. What are those?
What's the definition of an objection?
Do you guys know?
Come on.
Would you guys say an objection is maybe like a false, what?
A drawback.
A drawback? Maybe a false no?
A doubt.
Huh?
A doubt.
A doubt.
Yep.
I love to think of them as like false no's. It's kind of like an obstacle they throw in your way. And if you take it for face value, you're going to accept it as a no. But really, there's so much money behind it that we need to uncover.
Yeah.
So when we're in a buyer consultation or a listing appointment, we're going to run into objections. It's inevitable. We can approach them different ways, but nonetheless, they're all going to fall into one of these four categories. They're either going to be an affordability objection, a logistics objection, a property objection, or a risk objection. So affordability would be like, I don't think we have enough money in savings. I'd rather have more paid on my credit card. I just think that my credit's really bad. We hear that all the time, especially with first-time home buyers, right? They're very unaware of what they need to purchase, And that's the first type of objection we usually run into when we're trying to get them to even have a consultation with us. Logistics would be more like life or health situations. Maybe there's someone in the family with a special need and trying to coordinate that, or they have a really busy schedule.
Or kids' school, like I need to be able to find a house next to a school for my kids because they go to a special private school. Any type of logistics.
Property, they maybe had a really bad experience with property. I owned a home and then I lost it in 2007 and I haven't been able to recover. We run into those, and as our market continues to feel more volatile, we get those more frequently as well because people are starting to worry that that's going to happen again. And then lastly, it could be a risk. Maybe it's just too risky. They're worried about a recession coming up. They don't understand what they're doing for an investment, so it feels too risky. So
I was gonna say, that's probably a big one right now we're all finding, is it's too risky. I wanna wait for the market to come down. I've had a handful, if not a dozen buyers start to put purchasing on hold because they think in the near future the bubble's gonna pop and that's when they wanna get in.
When COVID happened in 2020, I had 2 buyers who were under contract pull out because they were like, we're not gonna be able to work. We own a food truck. We can't serve people right now. 3 months later, they realized, okay, well, that's not gonna be sustainable. We still need to get a house, and they went back under contract, but they canceled because of a risk that they were afraid of. Hi, guys.
Me too. We've also had buyers back before COVID, right when COVID happened, pull out because they were too nervous, and then go buy a house a year later and end up spending almost $80,000 to $100,000.
Yeah. So I mean, at the end of the day, they're all different types of objections. They're all going to fall into this. Whether you're cold calling, whether you're having a listing presentation buyer, they're all going to fall into one of these categories. And if you're aware of kind of what category it falls into, then it's much easier to kind of counterbalance it
and navigate through. Yep. Be genuine to yourself. Objections are handled best when you're not a robot. So how many of you guys go through and have had somebody read a script? Somebody's trying to sell something. Someone's trying to have you buy something, have you buy in, and they're reading right off of a script. It's hard, right? Sometimes when I almost feel like something's being too scripty, I'll start shutting down. I'll start going, okay, what am I gonna have for lunch today? Like I'll start shutting down, or like just because they're reading a script or they start coming off too salesy, I almost don't want to buy for the principle. So we don't want to do that. We want to come across, we want to become genuine, right? You want to become relatable. I tend to buy or buy in when someone's trying to sell something when they are like hitting certain levels that are relatable to me. They bring up my kids, they bring up sports, they bring up investing. I'm interested, right? So you definitely don't want to, scripts are good, but you don't want to read right off of a script because then I feel like there'll be a disconnect.
So, a lot of times when I'm faced with an objection, something that's genuine to me is I always start with I'm an educator. It's true to me, it's true to my heart. I was a teacher before I was in real estate, so it almost is a way, how people say, it's like psychology, like the psychology behind the word is you're actually trying to find another word, but you're allowing yourself a couple seconds to think. Instead of saying I go right into, well, I'm an educator. It's kind of like it gives me a few seconds to think about what else I'm going to say or how I'm going to match whatever they're throwing at me. And it's genuine. It is the first thing that comes out of my mouth, and it's genuine. Then I may tie in a script that I've read before that I can then go back to. But if I start with a genuine approach, well, I'm an educator. So if the price point that I'm suggesting feels a little bit too low, let me go back to what I do best and let me show you how I made this decision based off of data. But it's like I start with a genuine piece, and then I can add in whatever script I maybe need to fall back on. Hi, doll. Hey.
What's the best way to handle objections seamlessly? How have you guys handled objections come across when I get an objection, some people will shut down. I almost look at it as like a challenge. So another way to control the challenge is you want to control the conversation. when you're in class and you have a professor, they're usually the ones talking, asking the questions. When you're a coach, you're usually the ones talking, asking the questions. It would seem a little different if the roles were reversed, right? It's hard for a student, if they're the only one talking, asking the questions, to take their coach serious. The same goes in being in real estate. If you're showing up to a table doing a buyer's consultation or a listing consultation, you want to go in with a list of questions. You want to go in with coming across like you have the knowledge. You definitely don't want to have the buyer or the seller that you're trying to do the consultation with asking the questions. So you want to control the conversation and be able to ask the right questions.
All the questions. And if you're asking the right questions, then you're guiding the end result. If you can tell price point's a big piece for this one person, start asking about price right off the bat. Get that out of the way. Eat the frog first, kind of thing. Ask the questions, control the conversation. So, one of the first things that I want you guys to write down, and these are the words. So the training today was what words to use. These are some of the words. So when you're in an appointment and you're being asked to justify something that almost seems like, why? Why are they asking me to justify this? Chances are it's because there's an inexperience on their end and we need to uncover it. So the easiest way to go about it is to say, what is your experience? Those words will be so telling for you when you're working with buyers or sellers. Hi! What is your experience? So depending on the situation, you may be saying, what is your experience in buying and selling? What is your experience in applying for a mortgage? What is your experience in working with a professional realtor? Well, this is my first time selling a home, but my cousin's a realtor and she said that they don't need those photos.
Someone comes in, you're at the table and they say, hey, I disagree with you. I think you're way off on the price. I don't think the house is gonna sell that fast. That would be a good question to ask, right? Lauren then would say,
no problem. What is your experience in selling homes in this market?
Never done it before.
Well, I've sold 6 in your neighborhood and I'm telling you they'll sell by tomorrow. But, in the best way possible, you need to uncover what their experience is because it genuinely is usually inexperience that these objections are coming from. And once we know what their experience is, we can build off of it to build rapport and build understanding.
It may even check them too, because sometimes they could be aggressive and they could come off and you're like, whoa, I don't know if they are seasoned or they are not seasoned. So what is your experience in selling real estate? I own 30 homes. Okay, now you know that they have some knowledge coming behind what they're saying. So now you need to validate that, reassure them, right? So it's a little different if you say, what is your experience? And somebody says, I don't know, this is my first home. I've lived here. The last time I bought a home was 10 years ago. Little different approach, but still equally as important to understand what their experience is. What do you understand? In that same scenario, what do you understand about the market today? You're talking to that same seller or buyer, and they are very opinionated. Not just saying, what is your experience, but what do you understand about the market today? What do you understand about interest rates climbing? People, want to slow roll their home purchasing. Well, interest rates are going up. We want to be an educator and educate them on what that looks like. What do you understand?
One of the best ways I like to use this question is when maybe your presentation was a little flat that day and they didn't see your value. It is very easy to determine how you did in your presentation by asking them, so after I've gone over everything, can you tell me, what do you understand about how I work with my clients? Because they're either going to tell you all the things that you said and you did a good job and you nailed it, and they're going to be reiterating how awesome you are, or their response is going to be just as flat as your presentation was, and you're going to have to kick it in gear to try to get that appointment to close.
It'll give you a good understanding, maybe I didn't do a good enough job explaining the benefits or the value of having me as your real estate agent.
And when you nail it, it's really nice for them to be like, well, what I understand is you kick butt for your clients, you sell homes quickly, you do great marketing, like you're a full package. Like, that always feels nice to hear.
It's a good way to get some feedback, controlling the conversation instead of them at the end, or have them not call you. You want to have an understanding that they see the value in you when the conversation is done. Let's convert with conversation. Conversation is a two-way street, right? So when you are converting with conversation, what are some of the things you do in conversation? My main thing is I build rapport. I want to understand what's important to that person. I want to understand about their life. I do that a lot. I probably do it more out of the two of us. Lauren gets right to business, and I want to become their friend. So I want to build rapport with them. And I feel like if there's some sort of thing that I can relate to them or they can relate to me, it just starts to build that rapport. And I find that I can convert someone more when we have some common ground or some relatability between the two of us. That's how I typically convert.
If we're walking into an appointment and we're only communicating with them, our conversion rates will be lower. We have to converse with the people that we're trying to make our client, our prospects. In essence, we have to convert with them. They need to feel valued in that conversation too. Motivation. Does anyone actually know what motivation is?
Do you guys know what the definition of motivation is? What gets you motivated? What gets you motivated to wake up in the morning? What gets you motivated to work 80 hours a work week?
No motivation in here? Come on, guys. I'm motivated by a paycheck, I can tell you that.
I'm motivated to spend, have a little more financial freedom so I can spend it with my kids. My kids are motivation to me.
I'm motivated by cereal spilling all over the floor in the morning. That gets me right out of bed, So we're motivated. We're motivated by different things. We need to truly understand what motivation is and how important it is.
I'll read the definition of motivation. Knowing someone's motivation can get you to get just about anyone to do anything. Pretty powerful stuff, right?
When you think of even governments that have done crazy things in our history, they were tapping into motivation within their people, right? As a leader, if I know what motivates you, I can tap into that and get you to step on the gas in the right direction. So if you understand what someone's motivation is, you can get them to just about do anything.
I've gotten some of my best deals, some of my best transactions is because I understood what their motivation was. So tapping into that, finding out what is motivating your buyer, your seller, that's a huge leverage point to be able to understand or to be able to be educated on and qualified on which way to direct them, how to help them, how to assist them.
Every once in a while in real estate, you'll hear pressure points, like what is the seller's pressure point? And that's either time, money. What is it that's their motivator? Same word, just using a different. So we really need to understand with this buyer or seller, investor, developer, what is the motivation for this project specifically? What is the motivation behind this purchase? So decisions are based first on feeling, then we cater to logic. So every decision ever made in your brain had to feel good before you executed on it, even when it made sense. You have someone in front of you saying, it makes sense to get this life insurance. You're gonna have this much money if something happens and blah, 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 blah. And you're sitting there looking at that salesman and you're like, I don't know, like you kind of stink and this just doesn't feel good. That might make sense, but I don't think I'm gonna buy this life insurance because I don't know, it's a feeling.
It makes sense, it just may not make sense with you, right?
So we really have to understand every decision is based off of feeling first and then logic. And if we're not catering to the feelings of our clients, we are missing a very large opportunity to convert.
Lauren and I have learned recently in the last year that, there's one thing that you don't really learn or they don't really teach you growing up. And that's, emotion, right? I don't remember one class that I've taken in high school or college where it was emotion based. But believe it or not, in sales, when somebody goes to buy something, like Lauren was saying, it's people usually buy off of emotion. It's got to feel right. It's got to look and feel good. It's got to strike some sort of memory. It's based off of emotion. And that's something that Lauren and I have done this last year, is be able to hone in on that a little more.
Right, so when we talk about create a sense of urgency, we hear that as a sales tactic, right? We've all heard that. If we feel like a deal is going to expire, we click the link and we buy the shirt because we don't want to miss out on the savings. That is emotion geared. That tactic is 100% gearing towards that sense of urgency. Makes you feel like you're going to lose something. Now you've got a feeling about this situation. So we have to be aware of every decision. So when we have clients that are making a rash decision, there's emotion behind it that we have to figure out what it is.
How would you feel if?
So these are some other words that we use all the time.
I use these words in sales. How would you feel if we could list your house in a month? We could offer post-possession. So that's also having a conversation, finding out what's important to them. This word, or this sentence right here, is gold to them. Because how would you feel if I can give you an offer and still allow you to stay in the home for a couple months, right? Maybe I'm bringing a solution. Maybe I'm kind of presenting something. Maybe I'm kind of helping them find the answer that they're looking for, but they're just too scared to find it. So I use this word a lot in sales or in consultations or anytime when I'm dealing with a client. How would you feel if? It also seems like I'm kind of bringing a solution.
Mm-hmm. But we're creating a future that's based off of emotion. We're giving them something to look at in the future that's emotion based, because they're going to make a decision based off of emotion. So how would you feel if? Those are very powerful words to use, and they're very telling when we're working with clients. Decisions are first made in your brain and then by action. So we make a decision and then we execute. So we have to sometimes create those decisions almost like in their imagination. Imagine we're walking through a home. Imagine Sally's bedroom being here and that dining room you guys have, that beautiful table you guys have going right here. Like, how would that feel? I just used 2 trigger sentences to create emotion and to get them to commit to a home. You have to create these scenarios in their brain so that they can execute at 5 o'clock when you call them and say, hey, did you want to write an offer on that home? Yeah, we do. But they made the decision in the house.
I used the sentence before and this together. How would you feel if we could sell your home and you could still live in it? Could you imagine? Can you imagine what that would be like? So that would be, I use both of them quite a bit.
How important is it? This is when we use this more when we start to run into obstacles with some of our clients, and we have to make some hard decisions. But nonetheless, these words are also great to use. So how important is it that you have that extra bedroom? We've looked at 6 homes. They're all in your price point, but with that extra bedroom, what we're finding is the quality of home is just not what you would want. How would you feel about a den instead? How important is it? And if they're like, it's absolutely important, we have to have a door because we have a child and they need a closet and a door and they need a room. Okay, I'm not gonna bring it up again. But if it's something that we think may have some flexibility in it, we need to truly find out, and we need them to say it, because we're gonna use that with them later on. So it says, you would be using their words with your own advice. So if you say, how important is it that you have a pool? Well, it's pretty important. We only want to look at homes with pools, but I guess if we needed to build a pool, we could. Okay, I'm going to remember that, because I'm going to show them homes, and if we don't get one under contract with the pool, and then I show them the right home that has just a grass backyard, I'm going to go back to and say, remember when we talked about how important a pool was, and you said if you needed to build one, you could. I think this would be that scenario. How do you feel about that?
We also had a client last week, actually dealing with Landon. We said, how important is it to get into this house? Would you be willing to tap into your 401k? They responded, absolutely not, will not do it. Okay, that's very important to them. They do not want to tap into their 401k. So it's also a good understanding what lines not to cross, what they won't do to make a deal happen. So it works both ways.
What about when we need them to buy in? Just a little bit more. We need, it's like you got them, but you don't really. You need to bait the hook. We're gonna try. I'm not sure if it's for you, but I use this all the time I have a list of prospects that I haven't gotten pre-qualified yet. I use this all the time to stay in communication with them. And sometimes I throw things at them that are not for them at all, but it's just a way for me to keep talking to them. I'm not sure if it's for you, but I have a really good investment opportunity in Peoria. It would need about $20,000 in rehab, and they're like, oh, well, Peoria is probably too far west for me, but if you came across something like that in the Chandler area, I'd probably be interested. Okay, well now I know what their buy box is, so now I'm going to be focusing on just Chandler. But I call them with this scenario all the time so that I can really start to hone in on what their actual needs are. It also creates a sense of like, well, why isn't it for me? Who's it for then? What's happening? So they do create interest with it. It helps you gauge their motivation, it boosts their interest, and it can give you that tiny bit to move that person from someone that you're trying to groom to someone that you actually can find the right piece of property for.
What do they say? People travel in groups, right? So I'm not sure if this is for you, but I have an opportunity. Well, I like opportunity. Well, I like opportunity just as much as the next guy. And it kind of gets them to like, you're baiting the hook, but you're kind of setting the hook at the same time. This may not be the deal for them, but they may be open to a deal down the road, just like Lauren said. So we use this quite a bit.
So, like Leah, those two buyers that wanted a multifamily home, if it wasn't this one, it's nothing. This would be how we would approach them next time. We would provide them with an opportunity and we would say, we're not sure if it's for you, but, and that's how we would keep them in contact.
Remember, nobody wants to be left out, so it's kind of like in school, you're playing dodgeball and you line up and they start picking through the team. Nobody wants to be the last person being picked for a team. Nobody wants to be the last person to be picked for anything. I know I don't. So people want to feel like they're not being left out. They want to feel that they're important. Who do you know? These 4 words. I've used this almost in every business that I've owned. If I'm trying to recruit somebody or I'm trying to sell something to somebody, I do a little backward psychology. If I want Megan to come and take advantage of an opportunity, I may approach her and go, hey Megan, who do you know that is very intelligent and can make smart decisions on investing? Who do you know that would want to make some money? Who do you know that could see an opportunity when one's presented? Who would you know that would be willing to make a good deal or make a deal if it was the right deal?
But what he's doing is he's making her feel left out, and nobody wants to be left out, right? So it instantly creates a ton of curiosity within that person. Who do you know is saying, I'm not talking to you, this isn't an opportunity for you.
Not for you.
But who do you know? And instantly they're like, well, that sounds like me.
Yeah.
I like opportunity.
What do you have? What do you have? I use this quite a bit with investors. Who do you know that is looking to buy a home $40,000 under market, $100,000 under market value? Here's the spread, here's the ARV. Any investor that I tell that to, they're not gonna pass on it. Or they may have a friend that, hey, I've got a guy. Nobody wants to pass up on an opportunity. They just may want more information. That opportunity was directly for the person I'm talking to. I just go about it a roundabout way.
Worst case scenario, they do know someone.
Worst case.
Worst case, right? How open-minded are you, or would you be open-minded to? And this kind of goes back to when we need that, just that little bit more buy-in. So these are true, like we truly say these things in our daily practice all the time. How open-minded are you to expanding your search? How open-minded are you to a new build? If you're showing them an opportunity to be unconventional or to be open-minded, because that's a positive attribute, right? They will be more receptive of what you're saying. Instead of saying, let's go check out some new builds. How open-minded are you to checking out new builds is going to get you much further with that client than a direct question.
It's always going to be a no unless you ask, right? And sometimes you don't want to come across too strong, so this would be a good opener. How open-minded are you to this? Instead of saying, would you want to go look at a new build?
Or your budget sucks, so we've got to go like down to Buckeye.
I used
How
that once.
How open-minded are you to Buckeye? I've been like, how open-minded are you to Maricopa?
So when you're in an argument, or not an argument, before you get into an argument, a lot of people will go back and forth, and you've really got to let go of the mentality, like, I know best. People don't want to feel like you're talking to them, because that's just communicating. If somebody's just talking to you, and they're saying, hey, this is what you need to do, this is how you do it, you have no other options, I don't know, I kind of feel like I want to go against the grain, and I want to do whatever I want to do the opposite of whatever you're telling me. I don't want to feel like I'm being talked to. I want to feel like, hey, we're conversing, we're going back and forth. So if someone is, starting to get a little combative, maybe the best approach is something like this. Help me understand. I'd like to understand, right? Because then people want to, it kind of takes the combativeness away, and then it comes about at a different approach. Can you help me understand why this wouldn't work? Or can you help me understand why you're feeling this way? Instead of saying like, I disagree. I think you're wrong.
And there are times in our industry where sometimes that right client and that right situation, we like want to just stand firm because we know what we're talking about. We know we're right. They're being irrational. They're doing something that's going to be harmful to them, and we're trying to protect them, and they don't see it, and we get all wrapped up in these emotions, and it's like, stop. You don't, even if you do know best, you don't know best, because that's not humility. And you have to, if it starts to get combative in any way, you have to find out what the understanding is. Help me understand where this is coming from. Help me understand how we can move past this so that we can get this transaction done. You're going to catch a lot more bees with this honey.
Allow me an opportunity to explain what I was thinking. Help me understand what you were talking about using words like that.
Or you need to try it with your spouse. So help me understand, this is just another example. Help me understand why you chose another agent. Help me understand why you're selling without representation. Help me understand why it's important to you to sell off market. Help me understand why you don't want your home advertised on the internet. We get weird things all the time. Sometimes it's like, why? Like, we just want to be like, why? We can't do that. Help me understand.
That's the difference between communication and conversation. If you come with an I know best mentality, well then that's just communication. You're just talking to somebody. But if you're asking this question, now you're conversing. Most people, I use this quite a bit. When I'm talking to somebody, I'll say, most people like to buy a house under market value. Most people like to X, Y, and Z. And what it does is it makes, people, I kind of said this earlier, people like to travel in groups. So when you say most people, they're like, oh, well, I could be like that. I am like that. It's kind of finding something they can relate to. So most people like to be able to not, if they could stay in their home and do post-possession, till they find the right house. Most people would take advantage of an opportunity like that.
We're not like trying to teach you how to be like master manipulators, but sometimes we can see something our clients can't. We can see that they want a turnkey home, they only have $300,000. And this is also a way to kind of show them that you can't have both without having to say that so bluntly. So it could be as simple as, you know, most people want a turnkey home. What they end up finding is that paint and carpet isn't as scary as what they thought. And just getting them to become more open-minded to the reality of their budget in a more gentle way.
I bet you're a bit like me. Same concept, same thing. I bet you're a bit like me. When I make a decision, I don't like to make any haste decisions. Finding some relatability there. I bet you're a bit like me. If we find the right deal for the right price in the right area, you would probably make a decision. So this is another sentence that we use as well.
I totally just blanked on what I was gonna say, so sorry guys. Before you make up your mind, so this is the last quote that we're giving you today, and this is kind of like our last ditch effort when we're meeting with clients. If you feel like you didn't get it, just go after it. Before you make up your mind, let's run through what your net profits would look like if you were to sell with me one more time. Before you make up your mind, let's go over all the items that you've communicated to me on what you need versus what this home has. And this is kind of like your Hail Mary when you're working through a consultation of any sort, that if you need to rein back in, just go after it. Before you make up your mind, it's like you're reviving the whole presentation. Don't fatigue them, but you're giving yourself another opportunity to maybe touch on something that you don't feel like they fully understood. And at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is we're not giving you scripts in this training, but we're giving you starters, sentence starters that help with conversation. And conversation converts higher.
There's always a time and a place for communication. Just when you're trying to have somebody buy in, communication isn't probably the best road to go down. It's conversing, having a conversation. And these little starter words or sentences, I mean, it's what we use to really start to build that rapport, create that interaction.
When you read any type of sales book, it talks about getting a yes, right? Like, we're always looking for yeses. Ask questions that you can just get a yes to. That price point sounds great, doesn't it? Because they literally just said, oh, I like that price point. Just reiterate it. Yes, we get a yes. We're looking to close in 30 days. Is that correct? Yes. Like, you're asking obvious questions so that when you hit them with, now this one home has this specific obstacle. And we know that we're going to maybe get a no, but we sandwiched it with a bunch of yeses, so our conversion rate will still be higher because of those yeses. It's just like anything. Anytime you guys ever hear us speak, it's a numbers game. The more yeses we can get, the softer the no's come.
They call it, we use an analogy, it's called, or I've always used an analogy, it's called shots on goal. You don't want to just take a shot on a goal, somebody block it, and you go, oh, we tried. No, you're going to continue to keep trying. You're going to set up different angles. You're going to continue to try to get that goal. The more shots you take, the probability of the goal goes up. It's the same thing.
Same philosophy as momentum. If you get someone saying yes, 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 the next answer is not going to be no. It's probably going to be yes because you've created that momentum. So anyway, that's the last slide on this training. I hope you guys took notes on just some of those sentence starters that we use personally, but also the book in the beginning. I can go back to that slide if you want to see it. It is a very, very easy read, but it also is just awesome to kind of show you what some of the sentence starters that we offered, how they work on a more psychology based.
This book you should probably get. It should only take
a day.
A day.
Alex, you read it?
Couple hours.
Yeah, a couple hours.
Did you get it on Audible or actual?
Audible is actually an hour list.
Yeah.
It's something that you definitely want to revisit though. It's not like a book that you're gonna walk away from feeling super inspired, but more or less you're going to start ingraining these communication skills in your daily practice, and then you're gonna start to use them and you're gonna see that you get a much better result with your clients from it.